I think you either have to create a cool experience or extreme convenience. To me, those are the two things. If you can make somebody's life easier, or you can make it a really cool experience, then that's what you would do if you didn't want to compete on price alone. Kipp, what's up, man? It's weird to be recording on a Friday morning. We're usually doing Monday morning, but here we are on Friday. So we're not even going to be able to talk about the crazy stuff that happens over the weekend when everybody's kind of tapped out and doing their own thing.
Yeah. Instead, we'll talk about the crazy stuff that happened during the week,
Yeah, right.
which might be closer from a timeline perspective. So I don't know. Maybe we're good.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Well, I'm looking forward to it. This is part 2. There was a lot of good questions based on our Ask Me Anything last week regarding money and debt and investing and saving and everything else, budgeting. So I figured we'd take the remainder of the questions for this week, and then the following week, we'll go ahead and move into a new realm and a new topic. I'm curious what you think that topic should be. Do you have anything in mind or anything in particular?
No, I don't.
Okay, well,
I mean, I'd want to give some thought to it, but
and the guys listening
right
might have some ideas too. So if you have ideas, you can do one of two things to share those ideas with us. Go to facebook.com/groups/Order of Man. Sign up there. I just re-recorded an intro video because the intro video that was on there was from 5 or 6 years ago, and I look completely different. And so there's some updated videos there, but then you can ask your question or give us suggestions, or you can follow me on Instagram over at Ryan Mickler or Order of Man. Either one, you'll find us there, and we'll be able, and then you shoot me a message and we'll take your ideas into consideration.
Submit your ideas.
Yeah.
I love it.
Hey, man.
I love it. We're short on time, so we'll kind of rapid fire this a little bit today.
Let's do it.
So let's just jump right into it. So Mike Cole, his question, is it worth investing 401k Roth in your 30s when your company match still gets taxed at the end because of those contributions aren't matched tax-free, and neither is the growth? Or should you just do traditional and let both grow at the untaxed amount and get the tax advantage each year?
So
hopefully you followed all that.
I think I followed it. What the way that I'm understanding is that he can contribute to a Roth 401k, but his employer contributions are going to be basically a traditional IRA for all intents and purposes. And what I would say to that is, yes, you should do the Roth portion.
Match
and
is
whatever they're
free
gonna,
money, right?
So let's just say for the sake of argument, they match $5,000, but it's going to be taxed at 20%. So now that's $4,000. That's still $4,000 that you would not have had. And the growth on that $4,000 over the next, I think he said he was 30. So the next 35 years potentially. So definitely. And then what I would do, and I think we talked about this on last week's podcast, that if you do contribute the match, let's say they'll match up to 5%, but you want to save 10% of your money, put 5% into the Roth 401k. Actually, you can do all 10% into the Roth since it's a Roth. If it was a traditional 401k, I'd say do 5,000 there and then 5,000 separately and independently. You could probably still make a case for having a Roth IRA outside of your Roth 401k because of access to different index funds and better investment vehicles. But I'll let you make that decision.
Why would Mike bring up the fact that he's in his 30s? Why is that a variable in his question, you think?
Well, with 401ks, and we talked about this last week, there's 4 factors that every person needs to consider in an investment vehicle. So 1 is potential rate of return. 2 is safety. 3 is liquidity. And 4 is taxation. So what Mike is asking about has to do with liquidity and taxation. He's in his 30s. It's a long time before he can pull money out of that account without facing not only taxes on the money, but potential penalty taxes as well. So that's why it is important to do this in the proper order. And you do want to have some liquid savings if the transmission on the vehicle goes out and you need to pay $5,000 or whatever it is these days for a transmission. So that you don't have to pull out money out of your 401k, get hit with the taxes, get hit with the penalties, and dip into your retirement savings.
Got it. All right, Lonnie McIntyre, what are the biggest money moves someone can make who's 48 and has nothing saved for retirement?
Start saving. That's the reality of it. If you work with
don't wait.
Yeah, don't wait. Yeah. And you know what I've seen a lot of people do is they'll wait until they can put away as much as they want to put away on a monthly basis before they even start at all. So if somebody says, well, I'd really like to be in the position to save $10,000 a year, they'll either do $10,000 or nothing. And I don't ever suggest that. You obviously want to make sure that, I hope it's obvious, that even if you can only save $100 a month, that's better than zero. And not only that, you're building the habit of investing money. And it is a habit because that's money that you won't be able to spend today. So you need to get over that short-term, immediate gratification and start training yourself to put money away before you start spending any of it. So start. That's the solution. To put it on hyper speed and hyperdrive, if your employer has a matching program, you definitely want to take advantage of that, because if you're saving 5% of your income and they're matching, all of a sudden that $5,000 turns into $10,000. That's 100% rate of return overnight. So make sure you take advantage of that opportunity. Look for tax savings type vehicles. And one thing that I would consider doing too is at 48, you don't have a lot of time. You've got about 20 years until you hit that traditional retirement age. And you might have to work beyond that if you don't start saving now. But there might be side work that you can do. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, you're making $100,000 a year and you can make 20 grand on the side doing a side business, whether it's coaching or consulting or a skill set like firearms training or training jujitsu or teaching people how to paint or build websites or photography, where you might make, $10, $15, $20,000 on the side. If I was going to go that route, I would take a large percentage. I'm talking 50, 60, 70% of that side income, and I would start investing that into tax-free vehicles.
Got it. I'm going to steal something that you said last week, which was prudence, right? And that was my key takeaway from the last AMA is the question is not, can we afford it? Or is this a great opportunity? Should we do it? That's not the question. The question, is it prudent? And so maybe a thought based upon last week's conversation to Lonnie is stop doing things that aren't prudent.
Yeah.
Right. So start saving, start investing. And if you're not being prudent, start being prudent. Cut costs that's unnecessary, those other things, and start operating with a balanced, a balance sheet, if you want to use that term.
Yeah. A budget.
Budget.
There was a
balanced budget. That's better.
Yeah. There was a like a Saturday Night Live skit that Steve Martin did years and years ago. And it was something like, stop buying things you can't afford. And it was him, and he comes in to consult this couple, and they're like, well, we don't have any money. Can we buy it? He's like, no, don't spend money you don't have to spend, or don't buy things you can't afford. And then the husband's like, well, what if we really want the car, but we don't have the money now, but we put it on a credit card and then we pay it off later? And the guy's like, no, don't buy things you can't afford. And they try to keep finding these like loopholes and ways to do it. But I was introduced to a concept when it comes to budgeting that has proven valuable to me. It's a little counterintuitive when you first hear it, but you should spend every single dollar that you make. You should spend every single dollar that you make. And let me explain. You should be intentional about how you're deploying those dollars. So I look at it to myself, when I invest and save my money, I'm spending that money and I have it accounted for, whether it's $500 or $1,000 or $10,000 or $100,000 purchase or investment in a business or real estate, but I'm spending every dollar, meaning I know where everything goes, exactly where it should go at any given time. My grandma was, and my mom subsequently was notorious for saying, a place for everything and everything in its place. And they were talking about the order of the house, that everything should be put away and have a place to go. Money's no different. And so if you're not aware of how you're spending your money, you could potentially be blowing, let's just say $5 or $10 a day on gas station Diet Cokes and snacks, $10 a day, that's $70. Let's say it's only 5 days a week. So let's say it's 50. That's $200 a month. That's $2,500 a year that you could be investing, deploying, earning a rate of return on. So now's the time to start getting serious, even if it means cutting out the Diet Coke run in the morning. That's something I should be aware of personally.
Yeah. Well, and power of intentionality, man. We could grab that principle and apply it to all areas of life, right? What are you doing? Are you being intentional? Are you being influenced by other people? Is it an active choice that you're identifying as the best interest? Is it the top priority items? Like, that's really what that principle is be intentional with how you're spending money. Because when we're not intentional with our time and money, what happens? Before you know it, I have no time. Oh, I have no money. It's because we're not managing it well, right? Not being good stewards.
Well, and you can.
Jeremy Fulmer has this great.
I was just going to say, you can be sure that if you're not intentional with your money, somebody else is willing to be intentional with your money for you. Because every corporation, and it's not even devious in nature. Every company out there is after your dollars, and they're going to, if it's done correctly, they're going to exchange a comparable service or good. But if you're not going to be intentional about it, then including this organization will say, well, spend it with us.
Time.
Yeah. So somebody's going to be intentional with your money. It ought to be you.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeremy Fulmer's question, I love this because, I've done this actually. So I'm interested to see what your recommendations are. His question, what's your guys' take on scaling your rental portfolio by taking equity out of your current property versus letting it pay itself off?
I would do that with just a healthy dose of caution, because you don't want to overextend yourself. For example,
and then you lose it all.
Right, and that becomes a problem. But let's take a scenario. Let's say you've got a property and the mortgage, the payment on the property is, let's say it's $1,500 a month. And right now you're collecting $1,800 in monthly rental income. So you think, oh, I'm ahead. I'm doing pretty good. And now you go take out a loan, and then that's going to add $500 more to your payment. So now you have a $2,000 a month mortgage payment, and you're collecting $1,800
in that property.
And even, by the way, even if you're even, let's say you're paying $2,000, but you're collecting $2,000, you're also playing with fire, because the dishwasher is going to break, the air conditioner is not going to work, the carpets are going to need to be replaced. And if you aren't
in between renters,
right, there might be times where you don't have a renter at all, to your point, because you just lost somebody and it's going to take you 60 days to fill, or at least to collect a rent check. So you shouldn't just be breaking even. You should be cash flowing 20 to 30% in addition to whatever your mortgage is. But I don't hate that idea. Just make sure it's a prudent idea and it isn't going to put you in a bind and jeopardize both properties that you now have.
Yeah, I like it. All right, I feel good. I did good.
I think so. I mean, again, but there's another consideration here too. Is what do you owe on your home? Are you upside down, or is there actual equity? Now there has to be some equity, because nobody's going to lend against a property that has no equity.
But you don't want to lend it so much that now you're in the hole now that there's equity against it, right? Now
Or if property values go down, which could potentially happen. Now that wouldn't necessarily be too big of an issue because you're not selling it. But if you had to sell it because you got into a financial hardship, now all of a sudden you're in the hole 20, 30, 40, 50 grand. How are you going to do that? So there's some things to consider. And then you're going to buy a property, and with where property values are right now, you could be buying at a very high time in the market. So you've got this other rental unit now, which could provide the income for you, but consider what could happen if those property values now go down. So there is some factors to consider. It's not a no, but it's do it with some intelligence and some prudence behind it.
Yeah. Mike's story. Here lately, I've been contemplating closing my 401k at work and buying a decent amount of land. I'm only 37, and I do have an IRA. What is your opinion on doing this? I already own one home and I thought about turning it into a rental.
Well, I can't answer that question because I don't know what you mean by buying land. I mean, I know what it means to buy land, but I don't know what your purpose for the land is. Is it to develop it? Is it to live on it? Is it to create more income in some way? I don't know.
And how much more investment above and beyond the land would you have to put in?
Right.
And how does that, and it probably depends on how large that 401k is.
Yeah. So
lots of questions.
What I would consider is, what is the purpose for your 401k? Potential rate of return and earnings down the road when you retire. If you can take money out of your 401k and pay the taxes, and by the way, because you're younger, I'm assuming, pay the penalty taxes, which, don't quote me, it was 10% when
37.
Yeah. So you're going to pay penalties of an additional 10% on top of your ordinary income tax bracket. And by the way, if you take that money out, your income bracket might go up. So you need to talk with an accountant, right? Because if you're in a 25% tax bracket, depending on how much you pull out, you may now be in a 28% tax bracket. And so it's not 25, it's 28 plus the additional 10% penalties. So what is the purpose of that investment vehicle? And then can you replicate that in a different investment vehicle that's designed to do the same thing? So for example, if a great piece of property came up as a rental, a potential rental, I might pull some out, eat the taxes, eat the penalties, and put it into that investment property because there's a good, strong likelihood that that will generate revenue to a greater degree than my 401k would. And that's why you would make that decision. If you're going to do it into a different type of vehicle, like I just want to own raw land, there's nothing inherently wrong with that as long as you have the bucket of retirement set up somewhere else. And he did say he has an IRA somewhere else. So there's some factors to consider.
Got it. Jeff Kessler's question is a little bit different. I like it though. It's in the same vein. I think it passes the test, I think. I own a meat processing shop in Southern Colorado. As a new business owner, what are a few hurdles that I can expect to experience? How did you overcome them? Trying to think outside the box.
Well, meat processing. Okay, so there's some things to consider here. Some are financial, some are different aspects of the business. Marketing is going to be a huge component of that. But when it comes to the financial ramifications, I would really be worried about rising costs. That's a thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration. The commercial place that you're renting, assuming you are, the cost of that is going to go up. The cost of meat is likely going to go up. The cost of new equipment and servicing that new equipment is likely going to go up. And so, yes, your prices could go up with that as well, but can the market demand that kind of pricing? And if the answer is no, then people will find the cheapest source of protein they possibly can, and it might not be you. So you have to really think about what could potentially happen down the road. Anticipate that, build your pricing out correctly. And then that's why marketing is so important, is because if done correctly, you can charge a premium for your products, in this case, for the meat that you're processing, because people know, like, and trust you. And if they don't know, like, and trust you, then the only decision they have to buy a product is cost. That's it. Cost and quality. And most people are just assuming that all the quality is going to be about the same. So really, they're just going off of cost. But if you create an experience for your people, I think about some of these, shops that like you used to see in bigger cities or even small towns, where you walked in and it was a family-owned business and they've got all kind of different meats and people are coming in and they're regulars and everybody knows each other's name and they're having a good time and they're laughing with each other. Like, those are the kind of things that you want to do. But the other thing that you have to compete with now too is organizations that are shipping meat. So there's another vein that you have to consider, is how do I get this to consumers who are not in the area? I have a food service that I get every single week. It's called HelloFresh, and they send me all the ingredients for my meals, including the protein. and it's very inexpensive. So that's another factor that you're going to need to consider when it comes to pricing, marketing, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I totally agree. And part of this, Jeff, comes down to your unique selling proposition, right? It's not enough for you to be like, well, I'm a meat processing plant, and then it's a race to the bottom with you trying to be cheaper. So like figure that out. My dad was a meat processor, a butcher for most of my life. And just some thoughts, like my dad had the Sorensen jerky recipe, and it was his version. It was his flavor of it. And there was so much demand for his jerky that half the meat processing plant was a giant smoker to make all the jerky orders that people were ordering. And it was crazy, man. Like we would have people come in and they're just like jerky the whole thing. And you're like, what? They're like, yeah, all jerky. And you're like, holy crap, that's a lot of jerky. But his margins on the jerky were way higher, right, than just doing typical butchering meat cuts,
of course,
right, and processing. So figure out, where's your play? What's a, and I don't know, Jeff, you're probably not looking for ideas, but I'm going to give them anyway, is look at the shift of things, right? Here's another idea. Everyone loves getting their own cow lately. That's a thing, right? Like that's what I do now. Most people I know are looking to buy a grass-fed cow, split it with someone else, and have some good meat and not buy it from the store. So how do you capitalize on that? Why don't you coordinate that shit? You figure out where the livestock is. Broker it. You have a partner, and then you start selling half cows. Does it make sense? And then you have some margin and you have some built-in loyalty around what you're doing. So there's a lot of things, but look beyond I'm a meat processing plant and the race to the bottom of trying to beat out people on pricing. No. You beat them out on being superior in other ways. And then that way you're not looking at hurting your margin of profit just by trying to be cheaper, if that makes sense.
Well, and with the cow thing, if you go in on half cow with people, now you're double dipping in a way because you're making money on that. And then where are they going to get the cow butchered? With you, clearly. So now you get paid on that as well. And then the other thing to consider, I don't know if butchers do this or not, but you might have a really cool recipe for bone broth. And all of a sudden you're taking what most people used to just think was scraps, and you're breaking down those bones, you're making bone broth that you now sell in 5-gallon paint buckets. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm just thinking of different ways that you might just add a little bit more to your bottom line by being a little bit more creative. And we're in such a health craze right now that I think if you said, hey, and you communicated the value of bone broth, not wasting animals, the health benefits of it, I think there's all sorts of people who would love to buy a ton of bone broth from you.
Totally. Well, and maybe some people want to be part of the process, right? Buy your cow and you can help slaughter it with us.
Yeah. That'd be interesting.
Because, and they want to take the shot, right? Or whatever, right? So there's lots of things. Your own rub. I mean, I can go on for days of ideas and concepts around this just because it's a world that I lived in for most of my life. So
yeah,
very cool though. And way to think out the box, right? For Jeff to be like, hey, how do I just identify myself being different, right, than my competition and be successful? So
I think you either have to create a cool experience or extreme convenience. To me, those are the two things. If you can make somebody's life easier, or you can make it a really cool experience, then that's what you would do if you didn't want to compete on price alone.
Totally. Well, quick example to that. My mom hated this, but you know how this is. You go hunt, you're 2 miles or 2 hours up in the mountains, and you have a deer that needs to be cooled. What are you doing if it's not convenient for you to drop in at 2 a.m. in the morning to drop off an elk?
Yeah.
Right? In some shops, there's hours of operation, and then they expect you to figure it out until they open.
Right.
We weren't that way, right? My dad we would take deer in the middle of the night, depending on, and he would give out a cell phone number. That means something, right? Like if Ryan, if you were my butcher And I knew that if I get this kill and it's 4 a.m. in the morning, that I can text you and say, hey man, I got one coming in. And you're like, awesome.
We'll be
See you
here
in a minute.
Yep.
That means something. Not just convenient, it means something, right? It goes above and beyond, and there's a relationship that gets formed at that level of convenience and service.
Well, and there's another thing that you can do too with the convenience is you can charge a premium for convenience. So if I come in there and you're like, oh, I can't get to it for a week, there should be an option where you say, unless you pay 15% additional, and then I'll put yours to the front of the line. And there's people who might scoff at that a little bit, but you know what? There's plenty of people who would be like, you know what? I'm willing to pay a little bit more in order to have it in the next day or two. I had one of my taxidermy guys do that one time on a sheep that I killed. I brought it in and he's like, hey, it's going to be like 45 days before I can even start this thing. And I'm like, well, how do we speed up that process? He's like, if you pay me $100 extra and pay me cash right now, I'll put yours in the front of the line. Done. I'll do that. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
So people will pay extra for certain conveniences that you make available to them.
Yeah. It's when you're sneaky with it that it doesn't work out well. Just communicate up front and then you're solid.
And you should communicate it with everybody. Yeah. So Kipp, if you come in, I would tell you, I would say, hey Kipp, in order to do what you want, it's $1,000. Just so you know, if you want it to be faster, it's $1,100 or $1,200 or $50, whatever the number is. And you might say, oh, no, I'm good with it taking 2 or 3 weeks. Cool, no problem. I just wanted you to know that option's available.
Yeah. Prime overnight shipping or standard?
Right.
You decide.
Yeah.
No big deal. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I love it. And Jeff, by the way, we would sell hides. We'd sell those hides. So no one gives a crap about their hides. If they brought their deer in with hides on, we benefited from that hide.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, think through it. You got lots of options. All right. Jonathan Webster, Charlie Munger once said something to effect of getting to 100,000, it's the hardest, but the rest gets easier after that. I'd like you, if you could, discuss the learning high income skills to earn more roughly than $50 an hour. First off, let me ask you that question first. Do you agree with that the first 100,000 is the hardest, and past that it's easier?
I mean, I don't know if that's the number, but in theory, of course, because learning the skill to build wealth is harder than having wealth and then already having the skill,
having wealth and
being able to do it again. It's easier to replicate something
and show momentum,
right?
Yeah,
and that's why you always hear the adage, "The rich get richer." Well, yeah, not because they're inherently taking advantage of people,
they're good at being rich,
but because they know how to do it.
Yeah. They know how to get rich because they've done it.
It's like saying, what's the hardest part of jujitsu? Is it the first 2 years or later? Well, I would say it's probably the first year, maybe even the first 6 months, because you're beat up, you're banged up, you don't know what the hell you're doing. Everybody's running circles around you. You're out of shape, and you just feel like an embarrassment. And jujitsu doesn't always get easier because it's progressively more challenging. But you start to understand the game and you get better and you improve. And so I think in a lot of ways it is easier than when you start, just like anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. I love that. So anyhow, learning high income skills. What are these skills?
Wow. Good question. I would say if you can sell, that's a high income skill. If you can sell something. If you can connect and relate with people, that's a skill. What I want to get at as I'm talking about this, it's the things that can't be replaced by technology and robots. Those are going to be the high income skills. So attorney work, for example, I think most people would say attorneys are very knowledgeable, they're educated, but that might just go completely away, because if AI can just interpret the law without any subjectivity, that becomes a whole lot easier than hiring an expensive attorney. CPAs are the same way.
Totally.
Financial advisors are the same way. When I was in financial advising, a thing started coming along called robo-advisors. And these are the Robinhood apps and the investing apps and the apps that round up your expenditures and then deposit the extra amount into it and then automatically diversify your portfolio. And all the old time financial advisors scoffed at it. and laughed at it. It's like, well, like you can laugh at it or you can get with the times, and those guys are no longer in the business or probably suffering and struggling. So what should a financial advisor do to not be able to be replaced? Well, his job is not to manage money. A math program can do that better than a human being can do that. But his job should be to manage emotions. So if you're my client, Kipp, my job is not to manage the money. I'll just run it through an algorithm. That's what most advisors are doing anyways. They're not picking random stocks
Totally.
But my job is to manage you. So when you get scared and you're like, I'm going to pull my money out of the market because the stock market's crashing, my job is to manage you. And that's a high income skill set. Or when you're eager to put a bunch of money in at the high, my job is to say, whoa, hold on, and manage you. So anytime you're relating with people, so I would say being able to sell things, being able to network, being able to form connections. These are the type of skills, being able to do public speaking. These are the type of skills that I think moving forward are going to be the high income skills because they're not easily replaced by robots or technology.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things you mentioned is connection. Just to drive that thought home, there was a study that I've referenced over the years, and it was the top contributing factor that reduced lawsuits for physicians.
Was their bedside manner?
What it was? Likability.
Yeah, of course.
Not quality of work.
No, not credentialing.
Whether they screwed up.
Right.
Whether they were likable. And it's ironic, and it doesn't take much, right? Like I've done IT consulting, business consulting my entire life. I can't count how many times that you could have a project, meet budget, scope and schedule. Everything on paper, we did a great job, project is south. Because the relationship with the customer wasn't that good. And then I've seen scenarios where we screwed up on scope and schedule. We went over budget, but our relationship is good, that we have trust. And the customer goes, hey, I get it. These things are complex. And you get grace, right? When you have connection with people. And to add to the importance of connection, how many opportunities in life are actually through the conduit of a relationship? Most are. I mean, we don't have to go far to realize that, Ryan, you're successful in your role. Why? Because of your ability to create connections with guests, with other individuals, with team members, with battle team leaders. Most people, someone hired you. It was through connection that opportunity presented itself. It is critical. Now, of course, it has to be rooted, it has to be true, right? If you're manipulating people, will sniff it out.
Sure.
But man, relationships are everything.
Yeah, I think, here's an interesting story. I was talking with my girlfriend a couple of weeks ago about this because I was having some vehicle troubles. I'm like, have you taken it to anywhere in town? And she said, this place is really good. And we were talking about it. And she said that she had, I can't exactly remember, maybe it was a tire issue, and she brought it in, and it was just a quick little repair, and she was willing to pay what she needed to pay for the guys. And the guys were like, no, we're good. We know your family. You're good. It was just a small, easy thing, and they just took care of it for free. Now, you run that through an AI model, and the AI model is going to say, well, you should charge $200 for this, and this is the most But the reality is that she'll always go back to them, and she'll tell people like myself who just spent over $1,000 to get my vehicle repaired at that place, all because they did a free repair that they might have been able to make $200 on. So totally. That's something that I don't think a computer understands that they will ever get. No. So that's why the high income things in the future will have to do with people, connecting, relatability, relationships, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Great story. All right, Jason Cole. The war is, I actually don't know this word. I'm sorry. I'm kind of embarrassed. Hopefully we cut this out of the podcast.
Oh, no, we're leaving it.
Usury?
Usury, yeah. The war is,
I've never even heard it.
What it is it's excessive interest on money lent to people is what that is. So there's like usury.
So it's a financial term.
Yeah, there's like usury laws.
Got it.
Right. So there's laws. Each state and maybe even the government, the federal government has laws on. It's like price gouging, right? They have laws in place to say you cannot charge excessive fees to lend money at something other than what would be a reasonable rate. That's what that means.
Got it. Okay. The war is usury. It's not violent. Just don't participate in debt culture. That probability fixes every single problem. Usury is a sin in every culture and every religion. Don't participate like a feminine woman asking another man in a submissive way for money because you are impatient to build your own wealth. I actually maybe should have read this ahead of time. I have no idea what the question is. Jason, hopefully you feel better.
I don't know. I mean,
you got that off your chest.
I don't think he's entirely wrong, though. I don't think he's wrong. I don't know about the borrowing money
it's obviously
like a woman,
yeah.
But and it is an interesting point, though. It is interesting. And I kind of like the visual behind going and begging another man for some money because you don't have the forward thinking or the discipline to save up for yourself. I kind of don't hate that idea. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's feminine,
but
it's certainly not masculine. But I will say this, if I can leverage your money and it's going to cost me 5%, and I can leverage it and I can go make 20%, that seems like a pretty prudent strategy to me.
On your money, not mine.
Right.
Yeah.
So
sounds
there's
pretty damn
that
smart.
too.
Yeah.
But I think when he says debt culture, I think that's the term he used. Don't participate in debt culture or something.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. When I drive down the road, I've got a 2015 3/4 ton GMC. It's a nice vehicle. It's not amazing. And it's not the worst, but it's nice. I keep it clean. I do regular oil changes on it. I keep it maintained. I upgrade things periodically just to keep it looking nice and fresh. But then I see a vehicle next to me and it's a 2026 3/4 ton black GMC. And I'm like, man, I want that. And that thing's $95,000. I think I'm okay. I think I'll stick with the vehicle that's been paid off for the past 4 or 5 years. And that's what I think more of us ought to do. The problem is that we want to look rich, but
that's what it means.
But we're not.
Yeah.
If I bought a vehicle for $20,000, or let's say 30, I think I bought my truck for $30,000 when I bought it. If I buy that for 30, could I afford the $90,000 truck? Probably. I could make a case that I could afford it. But that's $60,000, not to mention the lost opportunity cost that I could put towards a rental property or a business venture or even pouring it into this business. So I think I'll hang on to my $60,000 and people can think I'm not wealthy. And by the way, nobody's wandering around saying, I bet that guy's not wealthy because he drives that 2015 3/4 ton GMC. Nobody cares. They don't care about you because they're so focused on their own stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. They're worried about how they look. They don't give a shit about it. They're so engulfed with themselves.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to what we talked about last week, right? Is prudence, and I would add this to our high skill financial success, skill set topic and question just a second ago. Understand the psychology of things. Our own psychology of why do I want to buy that truck? What is that rooted in? Is that meaningful? Is it prudent? Is it beneficial? Be aware of your own actions, but also that's a great skill set to understand in being a business owner as well. This was a major breakthrough for me years ago where I realized, and I'll use technology consulting as an example here, that in most cases, companies aren't hiring my firm to implement technology. Not really. What they're paying for is the ability to outsource the stress in making sure they're doing the right thing. They are paying you to take on the burden. right, of the decision and the mantle of responsibility. That's really what they're paying for. And that's really important that you realize that. Why? Because if I'm a consultant and Ryan, you come to me and say, hey, Kipp, I'm going to hire your firm to implement XYZ. And my approach to you is, well, Ryan, you have lots of options. Here's 100 different ways and blah, blah, blah. You can do this, this, this. Let me know what you think. You're immediately going to go, dude, I want you to tell me.
Right.
That's why I'm hiring you. I'm hiring you so I don't have to make that decision. That's the psychology of the decision. So that changes how I interact with you. Now, when I come back to you and say, hey, Ryan, this is what you should do. I'm more confident. This is the direction. You do have other options, but my strong recommendation is this is what you should do, and this is why. I give you confidence in me and the decision. I don't put that back on you.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm not doing my job.
Right.
So that's an example of the psychology of understanding what are really people paying for. Are they paying for meat at the processing plant? Or are they paying for this feeling that I have this great partnership with this guy, that I get some good meat and we have a relationship and I'm one of the boys, right? Like, you got to understand that, right?
Well, and I think I agree with everything you said. And also, there's a level of assertiveness that I wish more men would just embrace in their lives. That when somebody does hire you, be bold and be assertive. You know, I've been into meat processing places, for example, where I'll go in. I remember early on when I was hunting, I'd go in and the butcher would be like, well, what do you want? I'm like, I don't know. What do most people do? And the ones who said, well, here's what most people do. They take the good cuts. They make steaks out of the good cuts. And they take the rest and they usually grind it for burger. And then they take about 20% of that and they turn it into meat sticks or jerky. Cool. I'll do that. That's what you're saying. Yeah. Just be a little bit more assertive, because I think that's what people are looking for.
Totally. I mean, how great is that? If you're a first time guy, you drop in your deer and he goes, standard cuts, burger the rest.
Yep. Sounds
you
good.
Go, yep.
Sounds good to me.
Done. Don't have to make a decision.
Right.
And if you're smart, standard cuts, burger, you want some jerky, half burger, half jerky on the scraps?
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, awesome. I just upsold to jerky.
Right.
Good job.
It's so easy.
And that's more convenient for me.
So easy.
Yeah. Paradox of choice, right? Some of that's paradox of choice, right? People want it to be a greater experience. All right. One more question from Chris Edmondson.
Okay.
I'm a Ramsey fan. I agree with most of their principles and the baby steps. The only one I'm having trouble with is pulling out investments to pay off my mortgage. For more context, my home is only in debt 3.25% interest, and the investment money is in a taxable brokerage. I'm 35. I do have a fully funded emergency account and a high yield saving, and it would take about half of my investments to pay off my mortgage. I know no one has a crystal ball, and I know the future of the market, so paying off the mortgage makes sense, but I just can't bring myself to paying the capital gains taxes on cashing out some of my investments. What would you do? I'm open to suggestions.
I would align with what you're saying. I agree with a lot of what Dave Ramsey has to say, but 3.25% interest, not to mention the tax savings on the interest portion of your payment and your mortgage actually drops the rate, effectively the real rate, like we talked about last week, even lower than 3.25. There's another issue here too, is that now you're not as liquid. I could pay off my mortgage anytime I want. So essentially, here's what I want you to wrap your head around. Is let's just say, for the sake of argument, that you owe $100,000 on a mortgage at let's say 4%. And you have $100,000 in an account earning 4%. Are you in debt? What would you say, Kipp?
No.
Technically you are, but you're not really.
Yeah.
You're out of debt. You're
using debt.
Right.
You're using debt.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you're not in debt, and there's arguments to be made that even with the tax benefits it'd be even, but whatever. I'm just trying to use really easy math here. And here's why that's important, because I already said there's 4 things you should look for when it comes to investing. Potential rate of return, liquidity, safety, and taxation. So in my scenario I just painted, $100,000 of debt at 4%, $100,000 in here earning 4%. Let's talk about each of those factors. First factor, liquidity. Who's more liquid, the guy who paid off the debt or the guy who has $100,000 in his account and still has $100,000 in debt? The guy who has the because if something happens, I've got $100,000 right here. So he's more liquid. Who's in a better tax position? Well, the guy who's saving money because he has tax benefits on that. So the tax benefits. Yeah. Safety. Who's in a safer position? The guy with the debt. And then potential rate of return. Who has the higher potential rate of return? The guy with the debt, because he's got money in the market that could go higher than 4%.
Yeah.
So I don't see a world in which it makes sense under those parameters to pay off the mortgage.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, and I think it's important, and context is everything, right? We talk about this. I mean, we should understand, right, the audience and the context of what's happening. And I think that's where guys get a little sideways with Ramsey, right? Because like his focus is what? We have a country that's grossly in debt, that aren't prudent with their purchases, and he's talking to the masses about like get out of debt, right? And he's taking a hard line there to help people, the average person in that space, right? It's the same thing. It's like when Asia and I were thinking about having our last kid, right? We're almost 40 at the time, and she was like, "Oh, you know, the risk of Down syndrome and all these other things grossly increases, right, later in years." And I'm like, based upon the average woman, you're not the average woman. Do it make sense, right? For where you are, but don't grab into statistics and then just apply it to you when you're not average.
Right.
Now,
that's a good point.
Same thing if you're below average, right? If you're in really bad health, you should probably listen to those averages a lot more than the average person, right? But
I'm glad you clarified that Asia's better than average, because you said you're not average, but at first you didn't say it was better or worse. You just said you're not average.
That's true.
So I'm glad you clarified.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
thank you.
I think that is a good point. And I even talked with Dave Ramsey about this when I had him on the podcast. I said, look, you're encouraging people to invest in the market to pay off debt, but that's not how you built your wealth. You built your wealth in real estate and business. This empire is not a result of you
using debt.
Yeah. And it's not a result of you putting money into the stock market. And he's like, you know what, Ryan, that's a good question. That's an honest question. And the honest answer is, I know my audience. And so for you, I would probably recommend something different, because you do your budget. You do have investments. You are paying down or have your debt completely paid off. And that person deserves different answers to some of the similar questions.
Totally. I love it. I love it. Well, we're up on time. In fact, I have an Iron Council call in 3 minutes. So we gotta wrap this. And talking about the Iron Council, we're open for enrollment. And you know, I heard you talk about it on the preview call or in the leadership call that we had last night. Mm-hmm. We have some serious momentum happening in the Iron Council. Our numbers are up. More guys are joining. I think, let's just say there is a movement of intentionality around men, or at least the men that we're surrounding ourselves around, and the men that kind of listen to this podcast. And I think it's a testament of the guys that are signing up and banding with us. So, man, if you guys are on the fence, you know, I think this is a message that we give out in this podcast often. Move to action, right? I had this thought the other day. The point of faith is what? To sit with it? No, it's actually to move to action. The point of knowledge and wisdom is to move to action. The point of you listening to this podcast, if it doesn't convert to action, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're wasting this conversation if you're not moving to action. So if you're on the fence, move to action. Band with us, orderman.com to get connected in regards to the order, but to learn about the Iron Council, go to orderman.com/Iron Council and join us and get on a team and start taking action.
And, you know, since we're talking about investments and we talked about the typical inverse relationship of return and risk, usually they have an inverse relationship. The more risk you take, the higher return. or liquidity is very much the same way. There's a lot of inverse relationships there. One of the best things about the Iron Council is you have this high level of potential return, and you have no risk. And you have no risk because if you join us and you're like, nah, this is not what I want, you just send me an email and I say, good, here's your money back. Have fun. Like no questions asked, no trying to get you to stick around. Just make your decision. Yeah. So high rate of return potentially with zero risk. That's not an investment you're going to find anywhere else. So check it out. Orderaman.com/Iron Council. Kipp, I want to get you out of here on time so you can get to those guys. But again, guys, Orderaman.com/Iron Council. Guys, I appreciate you. Great questions today. And we'll be back next week for another interview and another Ask Me Anything. Until then, guys, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.